What I've done is I've gone ahead and created a demo package in Zipforms for a file, just so we can take a look at some of these documents and hit some of the hotspots. If you cannot see my screen, please unmute and tell me so, okay? So the document that Tracy was asking about, let's take a look at that. It's the NCOA, and this is a new one. Oh, we've got it in there already. This is a new one that EXP has added as a required document.
Is that for all buyer offers?
Well, hello, wrong thing. What I believe is that it's considered a required document in the scenario where the buyer is making a non-contingent offer.
Oh, okay.
But I believe that if there's a lender and the contingencies are in place, that it gets removed. The requirement gets removed. At least that's what I've seen in a file that I was working on. So let me see if I can find it here. We can take a look at that. There we go. Non-contingent offer advisory goes into the market conditions, the non-contingent offers, the loan contingency, the appraisal contingency, investigation contingency, and the broker recommendations. So basically, this is a disclosure that is just informing the buyer of the ramifications of making an offer without a contingency. So it's just a clarification disclosure kind of thing, covering the bases, and it's just something that the buyer signs. So if you have a buyer making a non-contingent offer, or perhaps no investigation contingency or no appraisal contingency, you're going to want to get this signed. Okay, it's one of the new things that EXP is requiring. Any questions about this?
Yeah. Hey, Kelly, if we have the buyer, EXP is requiring this, whether it's a contingent or not, just for your information.
They're requiring it either way, huh?
Yeah, if we have the buyer, they are requiring it.
Okay. I've seen it come up as a required document and then be removed after the details of the transaction had come through and the contingency was not removed yet.
Oh, okay.
So it could be now in the scenario that you have, did they require it even after the details came through?
I think because it's a required document, I pulled it and had the buyer sign it. So it may or may not have ended up that way, but because it's a required document, I sent it to the buyers to sign.
Okay, well, and that may be the case, and there's no harm in getting it signed. It certainly informs them what happens when they remove their contingency on those things. It could be that this being a new document, they're still ironing out how they're going to handle it. So it's fine to include it. I think I have seen them remove it after finding out that there was a loan and the contingencies were in place.
Okay. I know you're going to talk about some other stuff, but where are we at with the fire hardening? I mean, has that ever been ironed out? Is that like no longer, I'm seeing that it may or may not necessarily be required, but is it a document that we're still looking at providing, or do you have any information on that?
Okay, so the update that I got from EXP is that most of the NHD reports now include a comprehensive disclosure regarding fire hardening. So because it's included in the NHD report, they're not requiring the FHD, what is it, FHDS anymore, fire hardening disclosure.
Yeah.
So if the NHD is covering all that, then you're not going to need the fire hardening thing anymore.
Okay. Okay.
If it's some obscure NHD report, you want to take a look and see, are they covering that or not? And if they're not, then you're going to need the FHDS.
Okay. Awesome. That's great.
Yes, I was really happy to see that. Any other questions about those things? All right, let's go ahead and look at the listing agreement. And let me just point out a few things that gets flagged. Sometimes it gets overlooked and it gets flagged, and there's extra paperwork trying to make it copacetic. Okay. So here on, this is the agency relationship. You're taking a seller, you're going to fill in their names here. The eXp Realty name, they have like two ways that they allow it to be. So like here, this is the official name, eXp Realty of California, Inc. For those of us who are part of the original team. And now they've broken up the California into 3 regions. So new agents will be either eXp Realty of Northern California, Inc. or Southern eXp Realty of Southern California, Inc. or eXp Realty of Greater Los Angeles. So depending on whichever company or whichever region they're in, when they enroll, that's the information they're going to put here. And then you being the listing agent, you're going to fill in your information. The DRE number for these brokerages is also different depending on the region. So again, if you were part of the original team that moved over, you're going to use the same number here. Nothing changes. We've got eXp Realty of California, Inc. And then the original DRE number. But if you are part of Northern California, Southern California, or Greater Los Angeles, there's a different DRE number pertaining to the broker who's overseeing that area. And then your DRE license. And just so you know, if you miss these things, you gotta go back and fix it with additional paperwork.
A lot of additional paperwork.
Yeah, so it's worth it to just have it done correctly in the beginning.
Hey Kelly, can I just jump in there? So
Yeah.
The original team, but when we have new people that come on board with new vision, so they're not going to have the 01878277, even though they're part of our team, they're going to have a different DRE number.
Yeah, depending on which region they join, they're going to be using the DRE number of the broker who is overseeing that region. So here in Northern California, that's Ryan Rosas, and he's actually located over here in Roseville. There's a whole, I've got paperwork on each region. So whatever you need, I can send it to you.
Okay, is there any way to find out which agents are under Ryan and which agents are under like the old number? Just so, I mean, as a TC, that way I'm not correcting the DRE to the original old number, and it should be under Ryan's number.
Well, one of the things, there's a couple different ways you can do it. One is you can ask them, it's anybody you're already working with, it's going to be this eXp of Realty of California, Inc., right?
Okay.
So anybody new, then one of the easiest ways to find out is to go onto the DRE website and look them up. And that'll tell you which eXp Realty, I don't know what their affiliation is, and it'll also have the correct broker number for you on that.
Okay, that's perfect.
You look them up, okay? So here on the PRBS, possible representation of more than one buyer or seller, just make sure that all this information is in the correct DRE numbers. These are just these are just random. I'm just trying to show. So, and then of course the buyer's agent name, seller's agent name, that kind of thing. Then we go to, there's the wire fraud. Then we have the listing agreement. So here you've got to have a date here in the date prepared. I'm just going to kind of point out some of the things that sometimes I see get missed. And again, it takes extra paperwork to get things fixed, especially after everyone's signed. All right, so make sure you put the date prepared in here. Who the seller names would go up here. So seller 1 and seller 2. And then you've got the company name, beginning date and ending date of the listing agreement. If you don't have these filled in, more paperwork. So let's say we're taking the listing today and it is going to end on the 15th of July. All right, so I've had them before where this section got missed. It's easy to miss. There's, so much in this little paragraph, but also where one of them is on and the other one is off. And again, we have to do like a modification of terms or an addendum to get it fixed. So Sean's chiming in here.
I've seen when agents duplicate a transaction, and so their years are wrong on the listing date. So it said, I've seen twice, it says 2022 and not 2023. So because they were duplicating a transaction. They're
Okay.
just changing, February 15th or whatever, but they don't change the year.
Gotcha.
2022 built in on the previous contract.
That is a good point. Did everybody hear Sean? Did you guys hear what he had to say? He was just saying that he has seen when people duplicate a transaction, sometimes they miss changing the year date. So he's recently had somewhere it's, current date, it's a new transaction, but it says 2022 instead of 2023. So that's something to pay attention to as well. All right.
Forms change too much.
Right. So then we have the city, the county, and the zip code and the assessor parcel number to fill in there. Okay. And then we've got, if it's a manufactured home, you would mark this indicating that there's an additional addendum to this listing agreement pertaining to a manufactured home, or the property is being sold as part of a probate, conservatorship, guardianship, or receivership. So then you would mark this if that's the case. Got to have a price in there. And then that will automatically fill in the verbiage.
Oh, it's a 1-bedroom condo.
And then any additional listing terms that you can add can go there. Compensation. So this is something that I see people kind of forget how this works. If you've got up here, this is the total commission that the seller will be paying. So if it's 6%, this is 6% for whoever is involved. And then down here is where you indicate what percentage the buyer's agent is getting. So there are people who fill this in as thinking this is the listing agent's amount and this is the buying agent's amount, and that's incorrect. If you put 2.5 here and you put 2.5 here, technically the listing agent is not getting anything. So you want to be clear that this is the total amount. And then down here is what is being offered to the buyer's agent. And then something that you can add here is maybe if the seller is paying a bonus for getting it sold, or maybe if you double end, you're going to drop it down to 4% or something like that. This is a section here where you can add additional information regarding commission. And then down here, what I like to add is just that the seller will reimburse me for any seller requested advertising expenses. So if they want ads run in the newspaper or something like that, they're going to reimburse for that. All right. Then go on down, and this is just where you're going to fill out the different things pertaining to the property. If there's a propane tank, an alarm system, solar powered, et cetera, et cetera. And then down here we have MetroList. You're going to input the MLS that we use, which in our area is MetroList. Here in the box, people sometimes get a little confused. This does say broker's initials, but you are authorized to initial here on behalf of, as an agent and on behalf of the broker. So you want to make sure that you get the seller's initials here. This is just the impact of using the MLS or not using the MLS. So seller's initials and you initial here. And it is not a requirement at this time for the broker to initial this, but there is a requirement for you to initial. Clear cooperation policy. I don't know if you guys are familiar with this. This is something kind of new in some of the areas. Our area right now does not require, so this would be checked. So our area does not have the clear cooperation policy, which one of the rules with the clear cooperation is that when you take the listing within 1 business day, you have to have it on the Metro list and live. So that is one of the things to pay attention to. There were a couple other things pertaining to that, but our Metro list at this time is not part of the clear cooperation. But over in the Bay Area, they are.
Oh.
So, so one of the things I want to point out is that with MetroList, you have, I believe it's 48 hours now. It used to be 72, but I think it's 48 now. When you take a listing to put it on MetroList, if you don't, then you have to do the SELM, which is the seller exclusion from MetroList document in order to rectify the fact that you put it on later than is allowed. So just be clear about that.
And that has to be signed.
By the broker and the seller. Yeah.
And the dates have to match. If they don't match, you have to get a new one signed.
Yeah, and there is there is a requirement for like an expiration date. Unless you mark the box that for the entire duration of the listing, you don't have to put it on.
Right.
So so it's, you know, be proactive and then you don't have as much paperwork to do later. Okay, so here, right here, seller instructs broker not to market to the public, understands blah, blah, blah. So if that's the case, you would mark here. Just read it through. It's, you know, with all the new stuff, when they revise these things, there's just a lot of additional things to become aware of. There's inspections or whatever. All right, so then down here too, are you dealing with a trust? And then do they need to have a seller and purchase of replacement property addendum? So if that's the case, then you're going to mark that as well. All right, ownership and title. And there we have the signature. That is not correct information there, so let's just remove it. And neither's that. Sorry, at one point I had to create a document, a blank or a, you know, just an extra document. I used my demo packet. All right, so then we have the seller's advisory and take a look. Here's date. Be sure to put the date in. And there's the information to fill in. And consumer. All right, any questions about doing the listing agreement?
Hi, Kelly. I'm sorry. I had an agent call, so I had to kind of jump off. Did you talk about, and I don't know if anyone's mentioned it, so that they are wanting EXP's address everywhere, like if instead of just filling it in with like EXP, if there's a place for the address, they want the address, and it's been kicked back once or twice because the address wasn't on there. Like when you fill out the purchase agreement, or yeah, see right here where it says address, that they have wanted the address and it's been kicked back without it.
Yeah. So, and just as an update, the address they want us to use is the one in San Ramon. I don't have it in front of me right now, but if you are part of eXp Realty of California, Inc., you're going to use the San Ramon address. We are petitioning to be recognized as an actual office location here, but we don't have that permission yet. When we do, then hopefully we can use our address here. At least that's my understanding. But at this point, we have to use the San Ramon address unless the agent is in one of the other regions, Northern, Southern, or Las Angeles. And if they are in those regions, then you use the address that pertains to that region. So again, that's something you can look up on the DRE to find out, or reach out to me. I've got the paperwork and I can send it to you. All right. So any questions about that?
So for the SELM, what EXP does is once you're in contract and you put the MLS paperwork in, they check the on-market date of MLS and then check the date on the SELM.
Yeah.
And if they don't match, then they fail it.
Yeah. You want to make
So
sure
have
you're
it right the first time. Get a new one signed. if you can.
exactly. You want to make sure your ducks are in a row here. It's not. They definitely are being very proactive and very clean with regards to the paperwork.
Yeah.
Here is an example of the SELM. So this is what would be used if you don't have your listing on MetroList within the time frame that they allow. So you're going to put the date of the agreement, the listing agreement. All right, so this addendum defaults to the listing agreement unless you mark it as a different agreement. And the date on the listing agreement, this is not the date it's signed. This is the date when you created it. So up in the very top corner, remember I pointed out that date, that's the date you're creating the document. Okay, so then we have seller 1 and 2 and the company name for the broker. And then here we would put MetroList, because that's the service we use in our area. The MLS does not require, so we are not, remember, we're not part of that clear, I believe this is what it is. Yeah, within 1 business day. So you would definitely mark this. In our area, our MLS does not require that it be on within 1 day. Okay. MLS has not adopted the association of the clear cooperation thing. Now here is in this section 3D and 4, this is where you're going to clarify when you can put the darn thing on the market. Pardon my French. So if it's a matter of calendar days, if it's a date, don't put it on until thus and such a date. And then during the entire listing period, and then another indicator for the MLS. And this is where you've got to have an expiration date. So if you do not market the property immediately, begin to market to the public on whatever date. And you want this is what Sean's talking about. You want to make sure that this coincides with when you actually release it on MetroList. So make sure that it matches when you put it on MetroList, and it matches the listing agreement as well. So then you've got the sellers signing and dating, and you have the broker signing and dating. And this is not something that we can do on behalf of the broker. This actually has to be sent to the broker. So in my case, it would be Deborah Penny. But again, if the agent is in northern, southern, or greater Los Angeles, they would have a different broker that they would send this to sign. Any questions? Sean has a question.
I have 2 things. For the lower part, Deborah Penny, that's going to need to be her personal DRE number that goes next to her. I've had that rejected multiple times.
Really?
They won't even sign it. They say you have to correct Debbie's DRE number.
Interesting.
So she has a separate DRE number when it's her name. When it's the brokerage, and it's the brokerage
Okay.
number.
So what Sean is saying is that he, in case you can't hear, with regards to the company, we use the company DRE number. But when we have Deborah Penny sign something, we have to use her personal DRE number. He's had that flagged.
I send it in DocuSign, this form for her to sign, and they reject it. And the reason for the rejection is that her DRE number is incorrect, and then they always give me her DRE number. I wrote it down, so it doesn't happen anymore.
Okay.
But after the second time, my thick noggin got it.
Okay. And then you said you had a second.
Well, I had a question. Why is it important to put the date on the do not market as far as MLS and MetroList is concerned?
You mean down here, section 4, AB?
Yeah,
I don't know why they created this document the way they did. So I don't know that I have an answer. Seller instruction to broker to exclude property from the MLS. This paragraph 4 applies unless 3D is checked. So if we go up to 3D and we say MLS has not adopted the National Association of Realtors Clear Cooperation Policy. So what this is saying is this section 4 is required if 3D was not marked.
so we don't need that if we're using 3D.
That's what this says. Seller instruction to broker to exclude property from the MLS. This paragraph 4 applies
Got it.
unless 3D is checked.
Is checked. Okay.
So the fact that we do
Oh.
not participate in the clear cooperation policy means that section 4 does not apply.
Okay. So I think they probably need that then, because technically speaking, if you have a listing and you don't have this sign and it's not on the market in 2 days, the consecutive day count starts as far as MetroList is concerned, because you could be marketing the property. This shows that you are not marketing the property. Therefore, when you do list it, it has a 0 instead of them backtracking and putting 12 on there as
Yeah.
an example.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a good point Sean's making, is that MetroList starts counting the days on the market based on the listing date rather than the day on the market. So with this here using the SELM, then they can actually start the count date from when it actually was released on the market instead of the listing date. All right. Any questions about this before we go on? All right, let's go check out the purchase agreement. And I'll show you some of the hot spots that get missed on that. Oh, by the way, yeah, maybe we can go back to that one. All right, here we have the listing agreement package. Same thing, the agency here, only this time, if you're filling out the purchase offer, you are representing the buyer. All right, so this would be the buyer's agent name that goes in here and the buyer's agent information for broker and DRE numbers. Again, make sure you have it complete, have all the DRE numbers and the correct numbers in place, okay? Same thing here with the PRBS. Make sure that you have the name correct. By the way, just to clarify the name, eXp Realty of CA, Inc. gets flagged. They will say that's not our name.
Mhm.
eXp Realty of California, all spelled out, Inc. Northern California, all spelled out, Inc. That kind of thing. Otherwise, again, it's going to take multiple documents to correct everything on the paperwork. Okay. All right. So here we go. Date prepared. We want to fill this in. This is the date that you're going to reference on future documents. The ones that say this is an addendum to the purchase agreement dated this date here is what you're going to fill in, not the signature date. All right. This is an offer from so-and-so buyer. We'll put buyer name.
Should we put so-and-so? So-and-so buyer.
Sean's being funny. Thinks I should name them so-and-so. Address, city, county, zip code, and the APN number. Sean has a question.
Does everyone know about MLS Connect?
Can you guys hear it, Sean?
We can't see the Zoom if they're texting everyone. But
All right. What are you saying? Do you want to come closer so we can be sure? everyone
oh,
here?
sure. So up on the left, the top left there next to e-sign, there's an MLS Connect button. When you click that button, it will give you an option to type in the MLS ID for that listing. And you have to sign in, you put in your credentials from MLS. It will automatically populate all the information for the property and the listing brokerage into your contract and all of your paperwork that you have in your template. So you don't have to write in the listing brokerage, ID numbers, addresses, APNs. As long as the listing agent inputted all that information correctly into the listing, it will populate into all your forms that are in your template. The only thing you need to do is just double check it and make sure it looks right. So it saves you a lot of time and, you know, hassle having to look up a brokerage ID number and having to look up their personal DRE number and all that stuff.
That's awesome.
It's much faster.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Okay, big, huge hotspot right here is section 2B, confirmation of agency relationships. So in this scenario, I have eXp Realty of California, Inc. as the company representing both agents. So we have different agents, same company. How do you think this should be marked as far as the check boxes? What do you think? Anybody know? All right, when eXp Realty is the broker representing both sides of the transaction, you have to mark both. And if you see this, it seems wrong, right? Because you've got different agents representing the buyer and the seller. But the reality is, it really is, because the company is representing both sides. It's a dual agency for all of us. So you would mark both.
Hey, Kelly.
Yeah.
Quick question. When you were mentioning earlier that eXp California split up, and so some of us are grandfathered into the 0187 number, and then we're going to have agents coming in on the other one. Is it still dual agency because it's eXp, but we're technically under different brokers? So wouldn't that be different offices? So it's no longer dual agency?
That is an excellent question, and I will have to reach out and find out that detail for you.
Because it's going to be super weird if there's another like New Vision agent, but they're under a different brokerage. So it's like not in-house. I don't know, it's just weird. So I just thought of that when you said that. So just curious if you can clarify, that would be really cool.
No, that's a really, really good question.
Thank you.
So if it's a regional versus an original, the question I understand you asking is, if we have eXp Realty of California, Inc. on one of them, and we have eXp Realty of Northern California, Inc. on another one, is it still both? Is that the question?
Right. Would it be dual agency because we're all eXp, or is it now not dual agency because they are
Different names.
a different entity? They have a different brokerage ID.
Yeah, that is an excellent question. I will have to find that out and get back to you on that. Thank you so much. That's a great question. I hadn't thought of that. All right. Any other questions at this point? And for Sean's sake, I will fix this. All right, so then we go into the next part of, is it all cash? There's a button here that you can mark for all cash. Here's the purchase price. Let's go 700,000 just for the heck of it. And you would input the different, here's the deposit you're going to do, increased deposit if you're going to be adding later, and the lender, loan information, etc. So that's the I can't talk. The information you're going to fill in there. So one of the things that's kind of nice about this new layout is that in the first 3 pages, you have all the specifics, and then the rest of it is just mostly reading. But so here's where you're going to pay attention to, like, verification of the cash, verification of down payment, etc., and how much time frame, all that stuff. The final verification defaults to 5 days. All the contingencies are now defaulting to 17 days. So this is where you would change that up And you actually, they've separated some of the contingencies too. So like the prelim versus the inspections, and that used to be all in one line item before. So you're just going to go through and mark those up. Now we get into some of the hotspot areas. So if you have, again, here, this is where you're going to input like what you're requesting to be included in the deal and excluded from the deal. Now we get into,
Hey, Kelly,
yes,
if people are marking items that are considered personal property, what's the lender gonna want to see for that?
Stacy, are you on? Are you here still, Stacy?
I'm here.
Cool. Did you hear Sean's question?
No, ask again.
You should just sit over here so people can hear.
Jump in the camera.
Regarding items that are checked, obviously, if they're attached to the house, right, they're considered part of the house, but if things are checked that are considered more like personal property, what is the lender going to want to see as far as addendums are concerned
Yeah,
regarding
we
those?
don't really love that part.
Yeah.
We're not really going to want to see that because personal property is personal property, right? So if it's built in, that's obvious. I think it's going to depend on I'm a broker, so whoever we send it to, but most of the time they do not want that personal property listed on there.
So take care of it on your own outside of escrow. That's their
Yeah,
discretion.
yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
So
Saying
like, I
it
guess-
without saying it. Yes.
So a washer and dryer, that's freestanding, but it's listed there under P19.
Yeah.
So if they were to check those items, would a lender consider that personal property, even though it's built into the contract?
Well, it is definitely personal property though, right? Even a fridge is
It
personal
is.
property.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, we would consider that personal property. Absolutely.
So Stacy, what effect would that have on your processes?
They may have them do an addendum, just to make sure that there's no, monetary value to it, because that's where, I mean, it gets muddy, right? With the purchase price and that kind of thing in lending. So, I would say, probably try to leave that off. I mean, it could get missed every once in a while. So maybe, it's on there and no one noticed, but, they will question it.
Okay. I know in
Yeah.
the past, we used to say like washer and dryer included at no value or warranty express or implied, but I don't know how these rules are changing and what lenders are.
And
monitoring.
again, yeah, that may work, right? But they may question it as well. I would say that best if you can leave it off, but if not, that no value, no warranty may work.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you got it.
And feel free to chime in at any point. If you
I've just been listening, I'm a total information nerd, so I've been observing.
be sipping that coffee so you don't fall asleep.
No,
Paperwork
it's
kind of
it's
boring.
It's interesting. I'm loving it.
Good. All right, so getting down here to this section here, allocation of costs and who's paying for what. NHD, definitely want to mark who is paying for this NHD, otherwise it gets flagged. It's part of the contract and EXP wants to see it designated. And look here, click here to select your service provider. Do you know how many times I see that it still says click here to select your service provider after everybody has signed it? So guys, don't be retarded. Pick your NHD report. I personally like to use disclosure source, so I'm going to go ahead and pre-fill that. That way in the future, when I'm working on this deal, that's already going to be there. And you want to go ahead and include the environment, and some of them will also include taxes.
And check MLS, because sometimes they've already ordered the report and attached it to the listing.
Yes.
See.
So like Sean said, make sure you read the agent's information in the Metro list and check the attachments, because that's actually a thing that I do. I'll pre-order the NHD and I'll have it attached to the Metro list, and I'll indicate that in the agent comments. This is
Yeah.
the one we're going to use.
Yeah.
The value of that is then we have that signature page already signed and part of the buyer's package. When we get a buyer, then, all the disclosures, I package them together into one big PDF, and that way we don't have to wait on the NHD. And I also get to control the content of the NHD report. So we're not picking something that doesn't cover the fire hardening, but actually does include that, also includes the environmental and the taxes, and it's got everything covered. And some of these NHD reports will also indemnify the agent and the TC if there's ever an issue with regards to their report pertaining, it becomes a legal matter. So, so I personally like to default to a company that's going to protect us as well. All right, so generally speaking, we usually ask the seller to pay for that, right? So make sure that you've got this filled out. And then as we go down here, who's going to pay? Well, there's some spots to add another report if you want. So here we've got the seller taking care of the CO2 and the smoke alarms. Government required point of sale, that's something I generally leave alone. Basically, if you mark that, then you're saying, especially if it's an older home, you're asking the seller to bring it up to code. And a lot of times your offer will be rejected because that can end up being quite an ordeal to deal with. So escrow fee, you can choose who's paying for it. Either, typically it's the seller, or lately we've been doing both. If you're going to do both, be sure to include that it is a 50-50 split, or, whatever percentage you're doing. But if you do both, it's not, the question is, well, what percentages? So make sure that you put in there whatever the percentage is going to be, 50-50 split. You do not have to fill in the escrow holder. You can allow the seller to choose. You can even say seller choice. But at the beginning here, when you're making an offer, things are negotiable. When you're in a scenario where people are fighting to get their offer accepted, take a look at, again, the Metro list and see if the agent has already pre-opened escrow, and then you would fill in whoever it is there. You can, in a market where the buyer has the option to choose some stuff, you can fill in the person you like to work with, and there's a little more leeway to make a request like that. Okay. Now, usually owner's title insurance is provided by the seller, so we'll go ahead and mark that. And again, seller choice. All right, so then we have, sorry, make everybody dizzy. So usually we have the seller providing the transfer taxes and the HOA documents, right? Transfer fees. If there are private transfer fees, you indicate that too. Home warranty. And again, we have click here to select your service provider. Don't leave it like that. So because this is part of the contract, the warranty now is something that EXP is requiring. You have something addressed here. So if your buyer is not going to do a warranty, or maybe they're just going to wait till after they get in the house and get a warranty later, you can mark buyer waives the home warranty plan, and that is sufficient. But if they're not waiving it, you've got to indicate what the plan is with regards to the warranty. So is the seller, you're asking the seller to pay for it? Are they going to split it? Again, if they're going to split it, you go 50-50 split. Is the buyer going to pay for it? Is the buyer's agent going to pay for it? And then down here, indicate who you want to use. I'm going to go ahead and choose Fidelity. And be sure to include how much. Now, rates have gone up, so take a look at the material and find out with regards to what are you going to want covered on this thing, and put in a number that actually covers it. Because if you put in $550 and the warranty you end up wanting is $585, then you have to go back to negotiations and an addendum or modification of terms to determine who is going to pay the additional $35. All right, so just, do a little research and fill it out correctly. And then here you can do other terms. Any questions about this information? So just to reiterate, the NHD report and the warranty are sometimes missed and they get flagged, and EXP wants it corrected. So I'm just giving you a heads up. Then we have the addendum to add different, you know, if it's a probate, if it's a short sale, et cetera, and then we go on. Down here, a nice little thing. So here we've got where the buyer signs. Acceptance of offer. So you can indicate, is the seller providing a counteroffer or a backup offer addendum? Entity sellers, take a look at this. Entity sellers, if the paragraph is completed, a representative capacity signature disclosure form is not required for the legally authorized signer. So if you are indicating here that they are an entity signer and you're filling out the information correctly and they sign, you don't need the representative capacity document. Now, if it's a trust, you'll still need the trust advisory, but you won't need the representative capacity. Okay. So just pay attention to that. And while I'm on the subject, the actual seller, if you have the property in a trust, the actual seller's name will be the name of the trust. So even though you have an authorized signer for the trust, say, you know, in this case, Joe Smith is signing on behalf of the Joe Smith Family Trust. Down here, the seller's name would say Joe Smith Family Trust, and then Joe would be signing. Okay, so I just want to kind of clarify that. People tend to kind of miss that. The seller is the entity who owns the property, or the individual if it's an individually owned.
But
Okay,
entities cannot sign paperwork, so that's why it has to be the signature of the individual.
right. Yeah, so the signature of the individual, not a signature that says the trust name. I hope that's not too confusing. And then we have, here we go, the agent's signature areas. You want to make sure that it's filled out completely, and like Tracy pointed out, they want the addresses in place. And you will, you know, if the other agent doesn't fill out your information correctly, then please correct it. You know, if the DRE number is wrong, cross it out and write in the right number, an initial next to it, that kind of thing. Otherwise, you know, you can do the extra paperwork. That's fine. That's what you choose to do. All right. Any questions about any of this that we've covered? I'm not hearing anything. So we have videos on filling out the different disclosures and stuff. So I thought instead of going through some of those things, I would show you where you can make a template. So up here in the dashboard, you can go to templates. And this is where you can set up a template that will automatically populate when you're creating either a listing or a purchase based on how you set it up. So like here, I've created a listing agreement template. I'm probably going to need to update these things because some of the paperwork has changed. So with my template, I have included the listing agreement. And then what I do is I like to add all the disclosures that I'm going to be needing for the transaction. That way, when I create a new file and I input that it's a listing, and I input the name and address and all that stuff, and it will, and I've got this set up to automatically populate when I'm doing a listing, it'll pull all these documents into that file and it will populate the information. But one of the things that the value of doing a template is that I can already input my name, DRE numbers, company name, and that kind of thing. So I don't have to continue to input that every single time. It's just automatic. Oh, look at this. Yeah, I definitely need to fix this. It's been a while.
Also, when you're creating a transaction with a template, it always pulls the updated version of forms. Rather than if you duplicate a transaction, you're getting the old forms duplicated.
Say that again. It automatically uses the new forms.
If
So
the
you're not
form's been updated, it pulls the new form into your template.
good. Awesome.
You never have to update it. It's always doing it for you.
All right, cool. All right, so now this template has been updated with the correct broker name and broker DRE number. And we go through, and it's just these documents are waiting for when I have a transaction. And again, this will populate into when I'm doing a listing file. All right. And so that's what I need to kind of redo that. But so I had a buyer named Brian, and I ended up creating a purchase offer file for him because we were running around back when buyers were just like going nuts for homes and not getting things. So that way I could input my information and his information, and we would just change out, you know, just do a new file for a new address, and it would automatically populate that stuff. So purchase agreement paperwork, same type of thing. I'm going to have a purchase document in here. And I've added a few buyer related documents that we were requiring. But, you know, most of the disclosures are supposed to come over from the seller. So I didn't need to put in things like the SPQ or the TDS because those are documents the seller will provide. One of the things that you are required by EXP to do is an AVID, Agent Visual Inspection. It has been a while since I have done this, apparently.
Use cover sheets?
You know, I have not, but I have, I've seen the value of using cover sheets. So. All right, so on the AVID, this is a visual inspection. You walk through and you're going to point out the things that you see about the property. Generally speaking, you're pointing out defects. And just to reiterate, you're not qualified to say what the defect is from. So if you see a stain in the ceiling, you get to say there's a stain in the ceiling. Don't try to say there was a previous leak or that kind of thing, because you're not qualified to ascertain that. You are just qualified to say what you see. There's a crack in the tile. There's, you know, whatever it is. The other purpose of this is that if it ever goes to court, what I've been told by Steve is the judge wants to know you were actually in the home and you saw it. So not only are you kind of indicating the things that are defects, but you're also indicating something that verifies that you were in the home and you saw it. So, you know, maybe in the entryway, comment that there's a coat closet or something, or a couple speakers, or, you know, that kind of thing, maybe speakers that are affixed to the wall. So you're just going to fill in something. And then if there's not something to comment on, just put NA. So maybe there's not a third bathroom. So you just put NA. All right. And then I have these two disclaimers just because I'm like that. It was recommended some time back to do a disclaimer that that reads like this: agent recommends buyer obtain desired inspections, including but not limited to home, pest, roof, mold, plumbing, etc., from licensed contractors to ascertain condition of property and address any items of potential concern. The value of that is you've got the home, pest, roof, mold, plumbing, etc., but you're not limited to the recommendation for those things. And that way there's, in the future, why didn't you recommend that I get mold checked out? Well, here it is. It's on the AVID. And then what I have added personally for my own, because I'm just this way, just to reiterate, this is a visual inspection only. Nothing was moved or opened for this inspection unless otherwise noted. Condition of property obscured from view is unknown. So those are my disclaimers that I like to include on my AVID. All righty. Are there any questions? I'm not hearing anything. All right, so that's all oh, here we go. Maybe this is worth looking at. Have you guys fixed your broker information in here? This is the information that appears in the footer. So let's go back to this and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Yeah, it should have picked a smaller file. So down here in the footer here, see, this is a previous, I set this template up back when I was with New Vision. I need to recreate my templates. So this is the information that's populated under here. The way you change that is, oh, that was not what I meant to do, sorry. Let's go back. Up here, you put your photo if you wanted. You click on the little arrow next to me. And here we have, this is the information. I did update it. It's just the templates. I need to create new ones so it populates with the new information. So you would go to Profile and Settings. I need the Jeopardy music. Exactly. So, so here we've got my information, which doesn't change. And then you can save it if you do change something, but then you go to Offices up here in the gray bar. Hello. Here we go. So this is where you're going to change your brokerage information. So we've got eXp Realty of California, comma Inc. And again, type it out correctly. And then here's the actual address for the San Ramon address and the phone number. And if I had a toll-free number and if I had a fax number, that would go there. So then we click Save. Now, in order for this information to apply to any new paperwork that I'm creating, so anything I've already created is going to have the old stuff on it. But anything going forward, anything new, I actually have to log out and log back in for it to apply to the paperwork. So if you get to this step and then you're trying to create new paperwork and the old stuff is showing up, just remember you need to log out. Make sure you save the new stuff here, but log out, and then when you log in, the new stuff will apply to any new paperwork. All right. Any questions? Comments? Feedback?
Can we go through every form in the library?
Sean wants to go through every single form in the library.
I'm definitely logging out if that happens.
Me
I'm
too. Okay, well, I'm kind of thinking then that maybe we are done.
Could you actually go back to your template? Sorry, I just wanted to snap a picture to make sure, because I'm learning everything. I just want to make sure I can create my own templates and I don't miss something.
Sure.
If I could just look at it real quick.
Would you like me to show you how to do it?
I've created templates before, but it's been a while. I just wanted to make sure I don't miss any of the items. So I was just going to take a picture of the list
Okay.
and then maybe contact you later if I have questions on how to actually create it.
Okay. Well, just as a brief thing, you would go up here to the navy blue bar and you would click on templates, and then you would click on new, and it will open a window to name it. And then you go in and that's where you add documents, and you can set it up in that way. So with the purchase agreement, we'll go in there so you can see the list. And because this is an older list, there's probably going to be some newer stuff that needs to be added.
You can also add an external document into this, like the EXP ABA.
Yeah, and actually I do that with my
Yeah.
with my templates for me and for the agents that I TC for. All right, yeah, so there's some documents that they do require that are not here on the list. Ada, if you want to reach out to me later, I can send you a list to go with.
Also, under the website for EXP for all their paperwork requirements. they
Talk
have-
loudly.
When you set up all your your URLs for your onboarding,
Uh-huh.
there's one that has, I can't remember which link it is off the top of my head. It's like the office that has all the different checklists on it. And they have SkySlope checklists for every type of transaction: probate, buyer, seller, short sale, REO. So you can go on there and click and boom, there's your list of documents needed for that type of transaction.
So tell them again, can you guys hear him okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tell them again how to find that.
Well, it's one of the links that was set up when you onboarded. You created your folder with all your different EXP links. Off the top of my head, I don't remember which one it is. I have to go to my computer and look. But it's going to be the one that has all of the PDFs that are saved for you. And one of the categories is checklists. I think it's called checklists.
Is that the Google Drive that they're sharing with us?
I think it is the Google Drive. Yeah.
Okay, so look for the EXP Google Drive and do a search for checklists and see if you can find
I
them.
found it super easily. So yeah,
Okay,
it's not hard to find.
cool. And those will be probably updated more than mine.
Hopefully they update them.
Currently is.
Otherwise, if they red flag something and be like, look at your checklist, it's right there.
All right, you guys. Everyone's still awake and alive?
Hey, there they are.
All right, any other questions or input? Then I am gonna think we are done.
Thanks for letting me jump in, Kelly.
Oh,
Glad I found you guys.
absolutely, absolutely. You are always welcome. All right, you guys, have a great week. And, oh gosh, my face is like,
Thank
Cut
you,
off.
Kelly.
all right, you guys, you have a great week and reach out if you got questions.